For your obedience is come abroad unto all men. Obedience here is used in the sense of faith. Look with me at Romans 16:26. Look at the last part of the verse. Made known to all nations for the obedience of faith. Get Romans 10:16. Romans chapter 10:16. But they have not all obeyed the gospel. Obeyed there is used in the sense of believe. God desires that we believe the gospel. Look with me at Romans 1 verse 8. Romans 1 verse 8. First, I thank my God through Jesus Christ for you all, that your faith is spoken of throughout the whole world. What Paul says in Romans 16:19, for your obedience has come abroad unto all men. So what's happening is the faith of the Roman saints apparently is so well known that the whole world understands it. So that's a really nice testimony to have. Now look with me at Romans 16:19 again. For your obedience is come abroad unto all men. I am glad, therefore, on your behalf. So Paul was happy about that. Notice what he then says. But yet I would have you wise unto that which is good and simple concerning evil. So when he says that he wants them to be wise unto that which is good, the idea there is he wants them to be knowledgeable of scriptural truth. He wants them to have greater understanding of the scriptures and what is true. But then he says that they are to be simple concerning evil. So what does he mean by that? Get 1 Corinthians 14, verse 20. 1 Corinthians 14 and verse 20. Brethren, be not children in understanding. Well, that makes sense because God doesn't want us to be children in understanding. He wants us to grow to maturity. But notice what it then says. Howbeit in malice be ye children, but in understanding be men. So in malice, we're supposed to be children. We're supposed to be unsophisticated, uneducated, untrained, unfamiliar with malice. In understanding, we should be men. Now, what this is saying, I believe, is don't learn the techniques and nuances of evil. Let me give you an example of that. Get with me Deuteronomy 18, verse 10. There shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire, or that useth divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer. Now, Deuteronomy 18, 10, and 11 lists, 7, 8, 9, 10 different things that are not good, right? Useth divination, or observer of times, or enchanter. And so when I read those verses years ago, I looked at those and said, well, I don't think I understand the difference between those. So what's the difference between a wizard and a necromancer? What's the difference between someone that uses divination or is an observer of times? And so I started to look at that, and I said, well, what I'll do is I'll look at all the verses that explain what necromancy is. And then I'll look at all the verses that explain what wizardry is, right? And then I'll compare them, and I'll know that necromancy is this and wizardry is that, right? Now, if you do that, are there verses that tell you, well, this is precisely what necromancy is, and this is precisely what wizardry is? You know what happens if you try to do that study? You can't make any progress. There aren't cross-references to tell you exactly the difference between those two things. Well, why didn't God tell us that? How are you going to know if someone is practicing necromancy or if in fact they're practicing wizardry or divination or whatever? Well, the answer is, do you need to know? And the answer is you don't, Because Scripture commands us to be simple concerning evil. Is it important scripturally to be able to distinguish between all these categories of occultic behavior? The answer is it's not. It's enough to be able to understand that you should avoid it. Look with me, Deuteronomy 18, verse 12. For all that do these things, so that's the whole list, are an abomination unto the Lord. So do you need to figure out if someone's doing necromancy or wizardry or divination or a charmer or whatever? The answer is, scripturally, you don't need to know that. What you need to know is, anyone doing any of those things, how does God feel about it? He thinks it's abomination. For all that do these things are an abomination unto the Lord. And because of these abominations, the Lord thy God doth drive them out from before thee. So my point simply is this: as you're dealing with evil, it's not something where you need to understand the specifics and the details and the nuances of evil. What you need to be able to do is to identify it as evil and therefore avoid it. Be simple about it. That's what's going on when Romans 16:19 tells us that we're to be simple concerning evil. It's not, let me ask you this. Think about this with drugs. Do I need to learn the details of how you take all the different illegal drugs? Would that be helpful to me? Would that be a blessing to learn all those nuances? Or would it be better for me to simply understand, yeah, I need to avoid that because that is harmful? And spending time learning the details of how they are practiced is not profitable.